What's up, everybody? It's John, president founder of Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley. We have a good one prepared for you today, especially as we end the month of May. What better way to have another great podcast where we discuss some of the amazing things that are happening in the community, especially people that are innovating. So that's myself, Stephen. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Stephen Pallotta, Director of Business Development for Tesla Owners Silicon Valley. And, we have one of our incredible Plaid sponsors. I won't get ahead of myself here today, but one of our incredible Plaid sponsors is also someone who will be attending Tesla Takeover in late July. That is all I'll say for now. I don't want to take too much away, but we have an amazing guest to speak with today.
Definitely. And to give a little bit of a sneak peek, so here we have the Cyberlander. This thing is incredible, but I just wanted to show a quick snapshot of it. The Cyberlander, obviously, we know is the ultimate adventure vehicle companion. I personally can't wait to throw one of these things on my Cybertruck. And that's the great thing. It was specifically designed for the Cybertruck. It can pretty much go anywhere you're daring to go. If you want to stay off the grid for weeks, and have like all of the comforts of your home, this is the thing that you need to literally put on top of your Cybertruck.
Yeah, I think it's nicer than my kitchen, John.
Yeah, it pretty much. And so it's literally one of the most exciting products in development specifically for your Cybertruck. And I would love to just introduce everyone to the creator of it. Lance, what's going on?
Hey, John, Stephen, thanks for the invitation.
Lance. Yeah, thanks for coming on board. Again, I thought, maybe some of our viewers that are just joining now, we can just quickly, again, just show what the Cyberlander looks like. Again, this is the ultimate companion for your Cybertruck. So how about we just kick off and let's just, start by talking about, what's the origin story? Again, this is Lance. You don't really need an introduction, but this is Lance King, the CEO of Streamint Inc. and also Cyberlander. But we would love to know, I guess maybe let's just step back. Even before we get into the origin story, we want to give you a little softball question, kind of, outside of what you may typically be asked. But if you could ask a question to anyone who is alive today or has been alive, one question, what would it be? And what is the question you would ask them?
I would want to ask Steve Jobs what motivated him. It's appalling to me that biographies were written about him, movies were made about him, but nobody ever asked him, what makes you tick? I've got my ideas about it, but it's disappointing to have had books written about him and nobody asked him that.
What do you think it was that made him tick?
He really cared about people. Oddly enough, he's portrayed very frequently as not caring about people. But in those rare instances where he was really rude to people, it was usually because they were getting in the way of him helping people. His thing seemed to be that he wanted to empower people. He wanted everyday people to experience amazing products and have it empower their lives. And so that was a very different Apple than we see today. Today, it's more about being glitzy and nice and well-designed. But for him, it was about empowering people, letting people understand what good typography is, being able to see on your screen what you're going to get when you printed it out, and empowering them. I couldn't draw a straight line, but with McDraw, I could. And so I think for him, it was all about empowerment and making really nice things accessible to average people. And that inspires me to this day. We're trying to make Cyberlander as affordable as possible so as many people as possible can experience what it means to be able to take your kitchen, living room, bedroom, and bathroom and office anywhere and everywhere you go. We've never been able to do that and fit in a single parking space or park it in the garage. And so, it's all about empowering people, and that's what we're trying to do too.
No, that's incredible. If you think of these incredible visionaries, people like, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, and what drove them. Obviously, with Steve, there hasn't really been that question. I think maybe it's just because I think part of it came as a shock when he had pancreatic cancer and stuff. At least for me personally. Whereas with Elon, I think everyone realizes what he's doing, what he's accomplishing. And so, thankfully, he's doing a lot of interviews where he's sharing a little bit about a story. He has that book coming out later this year, but really documenting. And the great thing is he's really in tune with what the customer's saying, and people are saying you need to document your life. But yeah, no, Steve Jobs is one of the great ones. So that's really cool that he's influencing even what you were doing at Cyberlander. But we would love to just kick it off. Obviously you have the beautiful view of what you're creating in the back of you above the Cybertruck, and this little camper that will essentially, sit on top of it. But if you could just if we were to start, just tell us about, your background a little bit. And then, maybe kind of your years of experience, what you've been up to get to this point. And then why would you even transition
to this,
to building something? I don't know if this is completely your background or if this is way out of the wheelhouse, or, we would love to hear about your background and then how you ultimately came into this.
Okay, great question. So I started off college in engineering, and a year or so into that, I thought, what, I go to class all day and I work after school to pay for it, and I just don't really know anybody. I need to get to know some of these people. So I turned to the guy next to me and I said, "Hi, my name's Lance. What's your name?" And he pulled out his HP 41 CV calculator and starts tapping as fast as he can on it. It's like, "I don't think your name is in there." And he just couldn't talk. He was an engineer. And so that made me think, maybe I don't want to be an engineer. So I switched majors and went into business. And I was in my final semester of my undergraduate work when a little startup company took notice of some of the work I was doing on computers and said, "Hey, we need somebody with your skills at our company." And that little startup company was Dr. Stephen R. Covey's company. And one of my first assignments working for them was to help them get the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People out the door, get it published and out. And, Simon & Schuster was the publisher, world's largest publisher. And they weren't using computers and stuff yet. So we were sending them these pristine files, and they were coming back with galleys that were all messed up. And so we spent time long distance, back when you had to pay for long distance calls, teaching them how to use PageMaker and Illustrator so that we could get that book out. And so then I was there for 9.5 years, ended up as director of operations, helped grow the company. Well, we were about 50 employees when I started and 4,000 when I left. But while I was director of operations, we grew from roughly 60 people to about, I would guess, 500 or 600. And then I went into product development, and we continued to grow. And then I left and went to another startup because I had the startup bug. And then along the way, I ended up managing IT departments and built a data center that won a Computer World Best Practices Award. That led to stints at Dell and Lenovo as a solutions architect. And I was working at Lenovo, mostly doing supercomputers for universities in Southern California, when they asked me to come solve a problem at a client that they had. And that client was a transit agency that was trying to stream 10 HD video streams off of each bus with real-time analytics streaming off the bus. And they've been trying for 5 years and had worked with just about everybody that's got a big name in the business, from storage companies to technology companies to surveillance companies. And they all thought they could do it, and none of them could. It failed. And so they asked me to come and see if I could figure out how to make it work. We had it working 2 weeks later, and so I ended up leaving Lenovo to focus on that opportunity. And then the pandemic came, and of course, transit was shut down. And I had this brilliant team of AI people and data analysts and that. And I thought, you know what? I do not want to lay these people off. They're too talented. I want to keep them around and work on something. So he said, well, what can we do that would, come out with a new product or something so we can control our own destiny? We're not dependent upon an industry that shuts down when there's a pandemic. And so we were bouncing a lot of different ideas around, including one that would use hand washing recognition so that people would know that they were washing their hands correctly during the pandemic, and would coach them to do it better. At any rate, we had worked on that and decided to license that to somebody else. And so we were thinking about other products, and I had not intended to buy a Cybertruck. I was perfectly happy with my Model 3. But then I was watching the event, and it hit me. This is unlike any vehicle that's ever come before. It's the least compromised of any vehicle. Traditionally, if you get something that has good performance, you get bad gas mileage. Or if you have, a lot of suspension travel and can go off-road or carry a heavy load, then you're going to have a rough ride and things like that. And I could tell by what they were creating that it would be a relatively uncompromised vehicle. The least compromised of any vehicle to date. And that kind of inspired me. And I thought, man, I think I better have one of these. So I ordered one right after the show ended, while I was still in shock with the design of it. And as I continued to think about it, I thought, you know what, this needs a unique camper. You can't slide any other camper into this because of its shape. So somebody needs to make a camper for it. And I got thinking, well, who's going to make a camper for this thing? And I thought, I look at the players that are out there today, and I just don't think anybody could make one that's worthy of a Tesla. Most pickup campers, it's like a trip back in time 50 years, walking from the cab of the truck to the camper, because you've got Herculon plaid seat covers and dial radios. And if they still made them, they'd still have cathode ray tube TVs, but they stopped making those, so they had to switch to flat panels. They just seem really old-fashioned to me. And so I got thinking about, well, what would a company need to do to be able to make it a modern camper for this? And I thought, well, it'd help if they knew something about aerodynamics. It would help if they had some really good engineers, including software engineers, had cloud services, and that type of thing. And I thought, wait a minute, I'm describing my company. And so I thought, well, the ideal would be for this new era of electric vehicles to have a camper with very low aerodynamic drag, so that it has a very small reduction in range. And so I thought, I wonder if you could fit one inside the vault, that the bed that Tesla calls a vault. And so I ordered a bunch of foam board from Home Depot, and they delivered 20 sheets of foam board, and 18 of them were damaged. And so I called them up and said, send me another 18. And so they did. And this time they brought them undamaged. And I built a mock-up in my garage to see if it would actually work. Could you fit, a camper in that amount of space? And I came up with a design that I thought would work. So I presented it to my team on one of our regular Monday calls and said, what do you think? And just stunned silence. And then finally, Bill, one of the co-founders, said, are you kidding? A disappearing camper for the Tesla Cybertruck? I'm in. And everybody got pretty enthusiastic about it after that. And so we went to town and did the engineering, did the modeling, and then said, okay, we know we can make this work. Let's present it to the world and see if anybody else wants this crazy idea. And we were unprepared for how many people wanted one. We were initially hoping that between 100 and 200 orders would come in, and I think over 1,000, and it was just overwhelming. Awesome. So about 6 weeks after that, I moved to Austin to be as close as possible to the Gigafactory and to start working on this. And so here we are.
Maybe if we back up a little bit, what's your history been with Tesla? Like, outside of this, clearly you were watching the launch event. How many Teslas have you owned, if any? Like, what's your interaction been as you followed this company from kind of afar?
So it goes way back when the original Roadster came out. I thought, well, that's interesting. their chances of surviving aren't great, but I think it's cool. I'm going to keep an eye on it. And then the Model S came out, and it was clearly a very impressive car. And I thought, wow, my next car is going to be electric, but I can't afford a Model S. So I'm going to have to wait for this cheaper one. And so I had just bought a new car, and I kept it for 6 years waiting for, a time that an affordable Model 3 would come out. And it was coming up on the month they were going to ship the Model 3. And so somebody asked me if I would sell them my car. So I sold them my car because next month the Model 3 was coming out. And I waited. And then Elon said, we're going to delay the Model 3. And I thought, okay, I'll lease a new car for 3 years. Certainly they'll have it out by then. Nope. Bought that car, kept it another 3 years, and then finally they said, okay, now you can order your Model 3. And I hadn't intended to get the performance model, but I wanted the white interior. So I bought the performance model to get the white interior because that was the only way to get it at the time. And I'm really glad I did. I really enjoy the performance model. So that a 12-year wait to get my Model 3. So the delays for the Cybertruck have been relatively short by comparison.
This is the year.
This is the
Lance,
year.
I wanted to ask you too a little bit about the Cyberlander and just some of the other and kind of going back to Steve Jobs, but how he was very purposeful with his creations, and it seems like you're inspired by that. Same thing with Cyberlander. But what do you see some of the greatest purpose besides camping and just being out in nature and exploring? But some of the greatest purposes of Cyberlander, how you'd like to see Cyberlander potentially change the world.
Great question. It's interesting because, we call it a camper because we don't have any better word for it yet. And I'm hoping that somebody somewhere along the line comes up with a better word for it. We'd like to call it the ultimate lifestyle vehicle because we have a pretty high percentage of our customers who tell us, I'm never taking it camping. I don't want to camp. But they're saying this will transform my lifestyle because I can take the kitchen, living room, bedroom, bathroom, and office with me anywhere and everywhere I go. So when I go to the soccer game, like we're showing over here, you've got a place to take a break between the matches. You can get out of the sun, you can make lunch, and have a place to clean up afterwards. Mountain bikers are telling us, hey, now I can go ride the bike right after work, change my clothes in it, go ride the bike, get back, take a shower, go into town and eat dinner before I return home, kind of thing. So it's really interesting to see how many ways people are saying this is going to enhance their lifestyle. And like I say, many of them don't even include camping in that.
Yeah, there was something we spoke about many months ago. It feels like now, many moons ago. But I believe you touched on the potential of disaster relief implementation, that you'd be able to bring, I don't even want to speak of negative things, but to say there's a hurricane, and you'd be able to get a fleet of these, potentially the Red Cross drives down to somewhere in South Florida and drops off a bunch of Cybertrucks. They set up the Cyberlanders, and now they have could be some makeshift or temporary housing for staff, for those who've been affected. Potentially you could drop these off and then go back and pick up some more. But if you want to touch on that a little too, just beyond the lifestyle and the luxury component, but just how far Cyberlander can go.
Yeah, Bill French, one of our co-founders, says repeatedly, I think the commercial uses are probably going to be even greater than the consumer uses for Cyberlander. We've had people contact us and say, I want this to be a mobile pet grooming station, or I'm a locksmith and I want to be able to take my tools on the road and have a nice, comfortable place to work on them. We've even had a doctor approach us and say, hey, I'm a doctor. I go into small towns because they're underserved. And so I'm in a different small town every day, 4 days a week kind of thing. And this would give me a portable examination room, meet with my patients and that type of thing. But, an insurance company approached us and said, hey, is this something we could use to send in after a disaster? Because right now, all the hotels are filled up. So they have to travel 3 to 4 hours to get to a hotel. So if they're spending 3-4 hours driving to and from a hotel each day, it leaves very little time to get their work done. And with this, they could go into a disaster area and just stay and get their work done much more quickly. Like you say, it'd be great to provide relief after a disaster like this, because you can bring internet back into the area and provide housing for people. And you think about the possibilities when full self-driving is available. You could imagine an app or Cyberlander app. People say, hey, I don't need my Cyberlander this week, but they do need it in Florida because of a hurricane or something, and just send it there with the full self-driving, and rent it out to somebody who's in need or whatnot. So there are tons of possibilities that way, and we're excited to see how it gets used.
Yeah, it seems like there's a ton of use cases. So as you've been, creating this and building this, how have you looked at the camping landscape in general, like RVing and, kind of that whole ecosystem? And potentially even as, this industry has grown a little bit, as probably there's more companies coming out of the woodworks building accessories and lifestyle things, adventure lifestyle things for the Cybertruck. How has that influenced, what you're building, or, how you've changed, maybe your first original idea or prototype?
Great question. So, the way most product designers would go around about making something like this is they would go to the RV parks and talk to the RVers and ask what they want that's new or different from what they've currently got, right? And we take the exact opposite approach. We have very little interest in appealing to the people who are already satisfied by what's out there. We want the 80% or 90% of people who don't own an RV, who don't see a need for one, who don't want to go to an RV park. This is the un-RV. Sure, you can take it to an RV park and camp next to your neighbors after you escape the city to get away from your neighbors, and that's just fine. But if you want to boondock, if you want to go four-wheeling where you really can't take a traditional RV, if you just want to go on the wine country or the cheese country tour and just know that there's a place to stay in areas where there may not be a hotel, or where hotels are very expensive during peak season. Suddenly you've got that flexibility. It's really the freedom of being able to be a nomad at will, knowing that you can just get in and go, and you got everything you need with you wherever you end up stopping. And we don't get to travel that way today. The way we travel today is, well, you got this very rigid schedule. And if you show up a couple of minutes late for that flight, guess what? They gave your seat away. And now your schedule's really messed up. And you're going to check into the hotel at this time. You're going to check out other time. And you're going to get, 12 to 16 hours for whatever it cost you for that day in the hotel. And it's just taken all the fun out of travel. Between the TSA and all of the other hassles and the rigid schedules. And we'd like to bring back the ability to just roam and enjoy and not worry about it. And we've had, it's really interesting. If you look at our customer base, it is a perfect distribution across the ages. We've got lots of young people. We have retired people. And we'll have a retired couple tell us, we want to be able to go visit our children, but we don't want to be a burden on them when we're there. We don't want them to have to clear out a room or take care of anything. We just want to be able to roll up, be ready to go, and then pick up and go visit the next child and do the same thing. And other people are saying, nope, I'm a surfer and I want to be able to go to the beach and surf and then shower, get out of the sun, get the sand off, and that type of thing. So, it's really interesting to see that kind of distribution instead of it skewing older or younger. We've really got the whole gamut of people interested in it.
Sure. Yeah, I want to ask a little bit about, and I know you're still in the prototyping phase and getting a lot of the larger thoughts put together. But I want to talk a little bit about how potentially Tesla's production or method of production has influenced your design, and how that may also influence how you produce Cyberlandr, how design is being, if it is, how design is being done so with production in mind. And especially as coming from someone who has a passion and a love for engineering yourself, just how that plays into it all.
Great question. So manufacturing has always been important to me because the first job right out of college, of course, was director of operations, right? So operations, manufacturing, making things move through, making it a company efficient is really important to me. And so that's where I started my career. And so from the get-go, we had always planned to design this for manufacturability, to use the most modern techniques. And to that end, we had contacted Monroe and Associates even before we announced publicly. So that was not a relationship that began after the announcement. It began before. And they were very complimentary. They said, wow, you guys are different, because normally a company comes to us when they promised a $25,000 product, but it's going to cost them $50,000 to make it. And they've been trying for 2 years and failing miserably. And then they come to us and we spend the first 6 months trying to help them understand why it's important to design for manufacturability. You come to us and you've already tried to design for manufacturing. You've already done your material science research. You've already done your own costing, and of course we had them do costing as well, and they ended up within a few $100s of what our costing estimate was. And they said, this is really rare. We don't see this very often. And we said, well, we can't afford to mess it up. We have to get it right the first time. We don't have deep pockets. We're a startup. We can't tap into the billions of dollars of money we've made in the past to pay for our mistakes. So that's why we went to Monroe and Associates early on. And then, we wanted to have somebody really good in-house to help with manufacturing. And it's really kind of funny the way it all works out. I had John, Dr. Know-It-All, in for an interview, and we did a video. And in the course of our conversation, well, actually a week or two later, he said, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he would love to talk to you. And I said, you bet. And so he put me in touch with his friend who actually manages an RV park, which I thought was great. And so we had a great conversation. And he said, well, what can I do to help you? And I said, you know what? We've got a good handle on most everything. The two areas where we're looking to make some improvements are more investment and manufacturing. And he said, well, I know somebody that worked in manufacturing at Tesla, and I'll connect you guys. So he connects us up. And so I'm getting these text messages from this guy. And I'm thinking, he's probably just connecting me to somebody who put lug nuts on Model 3s as they came down the assembly line, right? And then he started telling me about, a few of the things he did. And I said, okay, who is this? He says, well, I'm Joe Justice. I'm going, oh, Joe, the agile guy from Tesla. Yeah, I know who you are. This is awesome. And so, Joe and I kept talking, and he and his wife came out and toured our facility and looked at what we were doing and decided to join us as our Agile King is what he wanted his title to be. And so he's responsible for all things Agile, from software development to manufacturing.
On Sandy, and a little bit more too on design, just before we actually hop into Cyberlander, and John has a really great deck to share on that. But I wanted to know a little bit more, and I think you showed this on some recent videos, and possibly even spoke about it with Sandy as well. But just some of the durability of the panels, and I think you shared, I could be wrong, but that that this is material that you've created. Am I right on that?
No, it's one that we discovered. So, when we went to Monroe and Associates, they paraded about a dozen different composite panels past us and things. And after all of that, we said, okay, what would you recommend that we use, having shown us all these ones? And they said, honestly, the one you introduced to us that we had never seen before, because it fit what we were trying to do. What made it unique is, instead of having to have molds and dies for it, which have a long lead time, we could just CNC the shape we needed and thermoform it, right? And that's pretty unique. Now, in the 2 years of delays we've had waiting for Cybertruck, they've tried to improve Cybertruck. And we've been trying to make improvements to Cyberlander as well. And so we'll have little improvements across almost everything due to the extra time we've had to work on it. And so there are lots of things. We'll share a few of those things at the Tesla takeover, and then we'll save a few more for our production, our official unveiling a little later in the year. But I think people will be pleased. I think we've made lots of improvements in lots of different areas that people will really like.
Awesome.
Definitely. And again, I want to show a little bit about kind of some videos. We've shown that a couple of times. Here's another one of like the inside of the kitchen. Just being able to fold up the beds. Again, some of these designs may have changed. But yeah, we can even, get into some of the stuff we've prepared a little bit more into, kind of the aerodynamics of the actual design. But I know we added this, but yeah, any thoughts on just, or insights you can kind of share on how you've created it to make it aerodynamic? Obviously, I think actually the biggest issue with RVing, and we have another partner as well who's creating one, and they were talking a lot about the aerodynamics. And so the last thing you want to do is pull literally like a boat or a brick wall through towing behind your truck, because it'll just completely kill the range, which is obviously a big thing when you're driving an EV. But how have you taken into consideration the design of the actual Cyberlander itself when it's on the back of a Cybertruck?
Yeah, our goal was always to add zero aerodynamic drag, right? Because we wanted any reduction in range to be purely due to the additional weight and not to the aerodynamics, which is why we came up with this design. Now, Tesla at their investor day recently unveiled the latest near production ready Cybertruck, and it was 5% smaller, right? And so that's a big deal. And we had always known that there was a possibility for changes late in the game with Tesla. We had heard early on that they're not real good about sharing information and specifications with third parties in advance of a product's release. And we're hoping that will start to change with Cybertruck, because trucks are so much more accessory focused, and Tesla seems to understand that. And so, we're hoping they'll share even more information as we get even closer. But we knew that was not likely given their history. So we tried to design Cyberlander around being able to make fast, last-minute changes and still get to market quickly. And
that was something. Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask you about. It's funny, over all the years, especially when more so the past years with Apple, that all the Apple fanboys would always try to, the case companies would come out with the new iPhone case, and we'd get the dimensions and okay, well, that's how big, maybe the screen size is and all these little pieces, and we'd all freak out. But I've been wondering that, like you just touched on, is that you don't exactly know the exact size and dimensions of the bed and certain components. So how does that affect your development of Cyberlander?
It means you have to be flexible. The good news is we can get very, very close to what they are, because so many people have LiDAR scanned or digitally measured the different things. And so, we're probably plus or minus a quarter inch or a half an inch of the dimensions that matter. We know where the tie down points are and things like that. So there's not that much left unknown now. There are some things we'd still love to have Tesla share with us. Like we've heard there would be bidirectional charging. Great. How does that work? how are we going to interface our solar panel with their system?
48-volt system you talked about.
Yeah. Sorry, what was that?
Oh, the 48-volt system, right? That's what you're using. I think
There's a 48-volt system too. Yeah, which was interesting because we had developed ours completely independently, not knowing Tesla was going to 48 volts.
Right.
It just made the most sense, and so we're delighted that they felt the same and were willing to make that leap as well. So yeah, there are some unknowns that we would love to have them share more information with. We've been told they're well aware of us. They like what we're doing, and they'll contact us when they're ready. And so we just
Elon thinks your product's amazing.
Yeah, and you can't get a better endorsement than that, right? So
I think what I posted that I had no idea. I was just talking about accessories, and then obviously he was like, I think he was like, haha, cool or something like that. And next thing I know, that's how I heard about you as far as what you were creating and stuff, because I was just looking at all the accessories and lifestyle, and yours obviously stuck out, and cool that we ultimately got a response from the guy.
Yeah, and thanks for sending that to him. If we'd have sent it, we probably wouldn't have gotten a response, but since you guys sent that to him, it was nice to have him respond that it was cool. And
no, I think what you're doing is going to just create an add-on to more of the ecosystem, so, but I would love to just
kind of talk about that ecosystem briefly, right? When we first launched, now more than 2 years ago, we got ripped on. What are you doing? This truck's not even out yet, and here you are, announcing something for it. You guys must be crazy. Wait till it's out and then take your measurements and do it. And my response has always been, no, that's too late. If we don't get started now, people will have to wait at least a year after Cybertruck comes out before they can get some of these accessories. And nobody really wants to wait that long. You get your new toy, you want to put it to use right away. And so we got to work on it. And I think, at Investor Day, they showed this new 5% smaller Cybertruck, right? And the biggest issue was the bed sides are 6 inches narrower, right? And they're angled, which is not ideal for the design we had. And we knew that. And so we had a backup plan just in case. And we're hoping to have our new prototype ready in time to show it at your Tesla takeover that takes into account the shrinking of the dimensions and basically a major change in the way we actuate. And people say, well, that just proves you came out way too early and you should have waited. And I would say, no, you're dead wrong. Because what did Elon say at the shareholder meeting recently? He said, no, we're not going into the RV and camper market because a startup, Pause, and other companies are already working on some of those accessories, right? So I think that validated right there that, when they first showed the Cybertruck, they showed their own little camping solution and a potential trailer. And it sounds like they backed off of that now because they don't feel the need to build an accessories market around it because it's come up on its own. We're creating this ecosystem, and that's the ideal thing. You want a robust ecosystem built around your product. That's one of the best ways to know it's going to succeed. And so I was glad to hear at the shareholders meeting and the couple of days afterwards with some of the tweets that they want, a lot of third-party accessories, and that they're actually going to work to help promote that. Ideally, some of us will even get to present at the customer delivery event. It would be great to show off some of those cool accessories at that event in September.
Yeah, you very may well be some of the reasons, or one of the reasons, that someone even buys a Cybertruck. It's actually the accessory that sells the product in some cases, not all, but I think someone might, they can't get a Cyberlander and put it in a Rivian. Maybe they can, maybe they can't, but they can't. Okay, but they may be so fascinated with what you have and want it so badly that actually helps sell them the Cybertruck. or they see some of the potential or the reasoning behind design. But I definitely want to get back into some of the other photos John has and talk about the kitchen.
Before we do that,
Sure.
I just want to comment on your comment, which was that's very much the case. We've actually done the research, and 34% of our buyers say that Cyberlander was an influence to a major influence to the only reason they bought Cybertruck or are going to buy it. I think it was 14% said it's the only reason they bought a Cybertruck. And then there was, greatly influenced and influenced the decision was a third of them. So I think the latest numbers we saw were somewhere between 15 and 18% would not have bought a Cybertruck had it not been for Cyberlander.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can see how, especially because if you're able to buy the truck plus that, I mean, because there's so many or truck RVs that kind of or come all in one, but this has the versatility to essentially do both, take it off and go do your daily stuff, and then potentially, or just keep it on all the time, or whatever.
It's interesting, when we did our customer focus group, the majority of people told us we're never taking it out. And we said, really? Why is that? And they said, some people look at this as a truck and they want to remove it and use their truck as a truck. But the majority of our customer focus group said, we see this as the ultimate SUV. And so that changed our thinking. Over the last 30 years, the market has slowly shifted from sedans to SUVs. Why? Because they go more places and they do more things. And for those exact same reasons, they want to go to Cyberlander because it lets them go more places and do more things. And so they're seeing Cyberlander as transforming the Cybertruck into the ultimate SUV. I mean, when you look at the performance, it's going to have performance that, is up there with Porsches and Lamborghinis, but it's an RV. It's going to be nice to drive like a Tesla, but it's an RV. With RVs, the journey has never been the reward. It was always the destination, because you have to drive that rattly, shaking, poor mileage piece of garbage wherever you go, right? And so many people tow something else with them just so they don't have to drive that monster around, right? And this corrects that. You can actually enjoy the drive or let it drive itself. And we've never really had that in an RV before.
There's that video. I don't know if you've ever seen it before. It's a Alfa Romeo 4C Spider drag racing against a Model X. I can't remember which trim, Model X. And then the Model X is actually towing a Alfa Romeo 4C Spider and beats the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, I love that.
I could see someone doing the same thing, in the back of the Cyberlander, cooking up some eggs, and they're on the drag strip. That would be pretty humorous.
Yeah, I hope to see those videos later this year.
It's probably going to happen. So just jumping into some of the stuff that's inside of the Cyberlander. Obviously, it's the kitchen. It looks like there's automatic drawers, an innovative sink, maybe even potentially like an invisible induction cooktop, which is pretty dope. But yeah, lots of cool things on the interior. And then I think even, the bedroom / workstation, again, especially once you have a Starlink hooked up to this thing's going to be a remote office, which is insane. So, looks like there's, a comfortable high density foam as far as the actual like chair and recliner and bed. And then obviously a great workstation, heated seats, interior and exterior LED lighting. I don't know. It just looks like not only the ultimate camper, but just like work from home station. If this could have only come out during the pandemic with the Cybertruck at the same time, we would have been set.
Yeah, that was part of the inspiration right there. And, now that so many people can work from home, we want to let them work from home anywhere. Right. And we really see this as a home, not a camper. Campers, it's okay if you're roughing it and it kind of sucks because you're only in it for a few days. Right. That's not our view. We want this thing to be a terrific place to be. And, maybe you have it parked in your driveway and you go, oh, I hate my kitchen. I'm going to go out and cooking the Cyberlander. It's so much faster and better. And, why not? Because this induction cooktop, can cook, it can boil water twice as fast as a microwave. So you really don't need a microwave when you can cook even faster with an induction cooktop and not mess up the texture like microwaves tend to do. So, but all of it has purpose. We didn't do an invisible induction cooktop because it looks cool or costs a lot of money. We did it because it frees up countertop space, because if you get in most RVs, you got the sink, and many times that's so small it's not even very usable, and then you've got a gas cooktop next to it, and there's not even enough room between the two to make a sandwich. And so we wanted to provide enough countertop space that it really felt like a kitchen that you could make a good meal in, so that people could eat better while they're traveling or camping. And,
yeah, I was joking at the beginning saying the kitchen's nicer than mine, but I'm pretty sure it is. Maybe mine's a little bigger, but that's definitely a nicer kitchen. But even as far as that induction stovetop, if you could talk about that a little more, and I think what you're saying too is, especially given the size restrictions that you have with the, you're in the back of a pickup truck really at the end of the day. So that's genius as far as incorporating the countertop as into the stove. It's one and the same. But if you could just elaborate on that a little bit more, just how that all came to be.
You bet. So, we wanted to free up that countertop space so that it was not taken hostage by a gas cooktop that's only used a few minutes a day, right? So it could actually be used in preparation, or, if you want to sit your laptop on it or whatever else. And so an induction cooktop that could cook through the cooktop allowed us to do that. And when we announced that, a lot of people said, that's not even possible. And so when we finally showed our kitchen off, we said, here's the impossible induction cooktop, and invisible induction cooktop. And, it's really nice that you can cook there. And, in that case, you see in that picture, he's just fried an egg, and yet he can put his hand right where it was cooking and not get burned. And so a lot of clever design and technology going into this. Even the sink is a workstation. It has an integrated colander, wash bin, drying rack, and cutting board. So you can use half or all of it as a workstation and make that really productive as well. And we didn't want to have a little faucet without the pull out sprayer and things, because you have those at home. You want them when you're on the road too. And so
they say, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, thinking about the design and how these pieces came into place, but they say necessity is the mother of invention, right? Yeah. And just looking at that, even the Model X with the Falcon Wing doors, how Tesla had to develop their own technology to go through the metal. It's similar to what you have here. It's cool to see that.
Yeah, if you really want to improve the customer experience, you end up doing a lot of reinventing, right? And that's what we've had to do. We reinvented the entire floor plan, because if you've ever been in a pickup camper, your head probably rubs the air conditioner as you walk through. You bump bums with whoever's at the kitchen sink or cooking to get to the dinette set, the bed, or the bathroom. You just can't get anywhere without bumping into somebody. And then when you're in the dinette set, your knees are touching, your toes are touching, and it's like, wow, how did this design become the only design for the last 60 or 70 years? As bad as it is, you can't sit up in the bed. You have to kind of slide in, kind of a thing. And it's just inconvenient in every way it can be inconvenient. And yet most people that buy them seem satisfied with them. But we wanted to reach the people who weren't satisfied with bad design. We want you to be able to sit up in bed. We want you to be able to sit at the chair and not have your knees hit or your toes touch, kind of thing. So by putting the kitchen sink up in that upper left-hand corner, that got the person working there out of the way, which meant everybody else that's in it can get to the refrigerator, the bathroom, the chairs, or whatnot, right? And the trade-off for something that is this convenient and has no aerodynamic drag and all of that, the trade-off was you need to make the bed. It's a pretty small trade-off to massively increase your range, have a much better kitchen, access to the bathroom, and everything else, right? And so that's a pretty easy trade-off. And we're hoping to make that even easier, so it's even less of a trade-off. Some people say, well, that bed can't be comfortable. And it's like, you wait. You know, the first upgrade in every RV is the bed, and it usually happens within the first month, because most RV manufacturers put really bad beds in. And we see that as a key place that we can innovate. And we think we can put a comfortable bed in that doesn't need to be 12 inches thick. Our goal is a bed that sleeps cooler, is much more supportive, yet still comfortable and conforming, and very breathable. And so I think people will be surprised. They may say, just like you did with your kitchen, wow, this is more comfortable than the bed in my house. And it may not be as soft and squishy, but soft and squishy actually isn't very healthy for people. It lets you have bad posture. So we really want to provide something that they don't feel like they need to upgrade it, that it's something that you know, is going to be good long-term as well as comfortable initially. So we're waiting to see how those reviews come in, but we think if people give it a fair chance, they'll be impressed.
Yeah, and there's some additional amazing things like the bathroom. I believe even, you know, just the X-ray of just being able to see kind of like all the amazing components that are going to be a part of this, right? I mean, I think you could see. I think one person was asking, is it going to come with Starlink connection, or is that going to be something that you're going to have to add on?
So it is going to come with Starlink, and we'll have more details on all of that at the official unveiling, but the intent is still to provide Starlink with every one of them. And our goal is to make it as convenient as possible. You know, we see the way most people do internet on RVs, and it's a combination of multiple devices and running Starlink, you know, all over the place, and a lot of other things. And we think that's a key area that we can improve on. You know, the first thing people replace is the bed, but the very biggest question, the most common question that RVers get from non-RVers is, how can I get internet on the road? And it's not a simple answer. It's not, oh, just buy this. It's like, well, here are the 6 things we do, or the 3 things we do. And, you know, you got to arrive the day before, you know, you're going to need the internet so you can get it all set up and worked out. And we want to remove as much of that pain as possible. So more to come. But, you know, we understand the desire to just have it work. And, you know, that's what we're going for.
Yeah, Lance, I don't know if we were able, John, were we able to get the slides that Lance added in there about the 48-volt system in time?
Yes, just hold on real quick.
Yeah, and Lance, maybe even while we're getting that, if you want to just talk a little bit about why you specifically chose to go with the 48-volt system. I think that's definitely coincidental and very beneficial that Tesla decided to go with that as well.
Here it is.
Yeah, so, you know, we've been on a 12-volt system since, what, the 50s or 60s for cars. And it just means you need much bigger wires than you would need otherwise, right? But it also means you got less power to power a lot of different things. And so we looked at it and said, you know what, the way we really want to do it is a more modern, intelligent design where we're using power over Ethernet to take both power and data over the exact same cable, so we can reduce the cables, because we don't have a lot of space to waste, right, for cabling. And we don't want to add a lot of wiring harnesses and wires that are being strung all through it during the manufacturing process. So the architecture we came up with was automotive power over Ethernet to what we call sensor modules, what Tesla calls controllers. And since ours are both sensors and controllers, somebody recommended it. Well, why don't you just call it a sensor controller? So we have sensor controllers. And so that's what the red things are in these pictures. And the blue is the cabling. And so we can massively reduce the cabling by having a controller that connects all of the local things. And so you'll notice we've got one at each window. Reason for that is on the top level, Each window has an exterior camera, so we can stitch together a 360-degree view around Cyberlandr, so you can see your environment and know that you're safe. And then, the windows have tintable windows for privacy, because you can't really put blinds or curtains on windows that go up and down like that. And so we needed to have controllers for that. And interestingly, those tintable films that they use are 110 volt AC, which is great if you're doing it in the house and horrible if you're doing it in the vehicle. And so we have to convert 48 volt to 110 volt AC, take that 48 volt DC, drop it down to 5 volt for USB-C power, PD, the power ports, and then all kinds of other things. So we got to do a massive amount of work in power conversion and controlling different things. And this was just the simplest, cleanest way to do it. And it minimizes your chance of problems as well, because you're minimizing that wire. And if you have an issue, it's going to be really localized, right? And so it's much easier to diagnose and or repair if you run into an issue. But, for these sensor controllers, ours are fully potted. If you know what that means, it means you take that motherboard in its enclosure and you completely fill that space with the material that keeps the transistors and other electronics from vibrating. So if you want to run the Baja 1000, you don't have to worry about it. It's not going to work the parts loose. And if it gets wet, it's not going to affect it. It's entirely encased, kind of like Han Solo in carbonite. It's protected. So we've gone to great lengths to try and make sure it's good, reliable. And of course, none of this stuff exists. No other RV manufacturer has a sensor controller like that. We had to engineer all this from scratch, just like Tesla had to go and invent their controllers, because none of that exists in the automotive industry today. And I think you'll see the automotive industry shift pretty quickly to 48 volt now, because it does make so much sense and it reduces the amount of copper and that, but they just need an ecosystem to build around. And I think Tesla provided that motivation.
Yeah, and even honestly, that's probably one of the biggest pain points of our Tesla, to be frank, is that you get to that last, charge on your 12 volt battery, and it can be very scary because, it may not allow your Tesla to essentially start up. And it's such a simple fix, but it can be a complete nightmare if you don't fix that, because you'll literally have to tow your car almost bricks. So I think this is going to be like a huge deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so too. That really was the Achilles heel of the Teslas. When I first moved to Austin, during the drive out here, somebody leased the home I had leased out from under me. So I got here and couldn't move into my place because they were able to get, another $800 a month by leasing it to somebody else, because the prices were skyrocketing because Tesla was coming to town. So I got here with nowhere to stay. So I'm in a hotel for a couple of weeks trying to find a place to rent. And I've got the surveillance system, the Sentry, on 24 hours a day. So it's keeping an eye on my car while I'm staying in the hotel. And within about a week, that killed that 12 volt battery, because it was 3 years old at that point. And so, went out one morning to get in it, and I was going nowhere. Had to wait to have that battery repaired. And of course, it was Mother's Day weekend. And so they were closed, and I couldn't pick up a 12 volt battery anywhere else for the Tesla. And so it was basically going to be down all weekend. And no, it must have been Memorial Day, not Mother's Day, because it was Monday. And they were nice enough. Somebody from Tesla came in on the holiday and put the battery in it for me, which was very nice. So they went above and beyond to try and make up for it. But it sure be nice if that wasn't kind of that weakness in the whole chain. So yeah, there's some of our.
Yeah, go for
it. There's some of our custom electronics, right? So, just like Tesla, we have to have a pretty smart brain in it to do a lot of the work that makes the interface so nice. And so we have hundreds of processing cores for the AI, and we've got the network with the 48 volt power going through it. And of course, anything with power going through it is going to produce some heat as well. So we need to cool it. And if we put a fan on it, you're going to hear the fan. Doesn't matter how quiet the fan is, you're going to hear it when you're trying to go to sleep or something. And we don't like that. And we don't want to add that heat to the cabin. That'd be fine if it's always winter, but sometimes it's summer and you don't want to add more heat to the cabin. So with my background in designing data centers, I was familiar with hot water cooling. And people go, what? How do you cool with hot water? Well, hot is relative. For humans, 125 degrees is hot. You scald instantly above 125 degrees, so you never want to get above 125 degrees. But for a computer, 175 degrees is still a very reasonable temperature. And so we decided to use the hot water loop to cool our edge appliance, is what we call it. And that means that the hot water loop is always pre-charged, so it's always warm. You don't have to wait a long time for warm water to get to the faucet because you've got circulating warm water through it, thanks to cooling this. So we thought rather than waste that energy, we'll put it to good use. So that's what we've done here. So kind of cool design. I haven't seen that on any other RVs, but Tesla obviously liquid cools their electronics and makes very good use of any heat that's produced in the system. So we're trying to follow their good example.
Definitely. Well, Lance, we just want to thank you so much for your time today and just all that you've shared about what is possible in building the ultimate lifestyle vehicle. I'm really, really just impressed. I was impressed before, but even more impressed now, just knowing all that's taken into account, especially as you're building this amazing accessory and really, again, potentially even home, or something where, this is something that can become like an amazing office, / potential even like temporary home. Even something as far as, it can provide a place to stay in case, you go through a horrific tragedy as far as, a hurricane or other things like that. So I feel like the possibilities are endless. And I'm truly excited for you to share more at the Tesla Takeover, which we do have coming July 29th through the 30th. So definitely, if you are a huge Cyberlander fan or just Tesla fan in general, there's going to be amazing companies like Cyberlander showcasing and even potentially sharing more details about their launch and the upcoming things. So definitely TeslaTakeover.com. But one question I did want to, I know we didn't completely get to everything today, just because there's just so much that we could share. But this is the year of the Cybertruck. How is that, versus last year or even the year before, kind of like when you were launching? Like, how are things working differently? Are you working at even a higher pace than you were, previously? Because we don't know exactly. Yeah, we don't exactly know when it's going to land, but what's your goal for the, if you could end the year like 12/31 and say, hey, this is, we accomplished a lot, especially at a startup, you don't really look back as much. It's just always constantly like pushing forward. But given that this is the year of the Cybertruck, what are you hoping to accomplish this year, or how is that changing the outlook and rigor that you're working towards this year?
So, it's not just the year of Cybertruck, it's the year of Cyberlander. So our goal is to be shipping to customers before the end of the year. And, Tesla will probably start shipping somewhere late third quarter, early fourth quarter. And we hope to be right on their heels. And that's an awful lot of work to do. And we've been working around the clock like crazy people for a couple of years now anyway. But the pace quickens and we get even less sleep. So if we look even more tired, you'll know why. But actually, it's been really rejuvenating. Even though we're working around the clock, we're holding up really well because we love what we're doing.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. You know, I'm really excited, especially if and when it launches this year. I'm really, you know, it's pretty going to be insane just to see the lifestyle videos that are going to be coming out. And so I'm personally excited to even learn more at the takeover. Again, this is just kind of an X-ray view of what the Cyberlander is going to bring. Make sure to follow their journey. They're at Cyberlander. Cyberlandr on Twitter, but also too, if you want to just check out their website, it's the same thing, cyberlander.com. Again, remove the E. And you know, you can reserve one for $100. They start at 55,000. And obviously as you add more accessories, but make sure to check them out, give them a follow. And we are, you know, couldn't be more excited to have you as a partner, to do this journey with you. And, you know, maybe, who knows, we'll come visit your facility once things are up and running, and you want us to swing by.
Well, you know, we'll expect you to stop by when you're out here for the Cybertruck customer delivery event. And in the meantime, you know, we'll be at the Tesla takeover. We'll be there. We'll answer questions. We'll have some of our advisory board members there as well. Sandy Monroe, you have on the speakers list. We have Greg Vane, who's former NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory scientist and strategist, who is also on our advisory board, and he will be there. And I believe we're going to have our expert from Johnson Controls Quality Control Group there as well, as well as a number of our other employees. So we'll have plenty of people there to help answer questions, and hopefully lots to show at the event. So we're really looking forward to a great job, guys. We really appreciate the partnership.
Yeah, so, you know, if you want to check out Cyberlander, if you're on YouTube, check out the link. Otherwise, on Twitter, I'll post the link as well. Otherwise, their handle is tagged in the actual live stream, so you can just click on their name and then go to their website. But definitely, this is a must, you know, accessory, or really just add-on that you can really just enhance your experience as you own a Cybertruck. So couldn't be more excited. Thanks again for joining us today. And we appreciate all that you're doing for the community to really, again, just continue to help build the ecosystem. It's not going to be on the back of one or two people. It's on the back of, you know, a bunch of people. So, you know, you're doing an amazing job to contribute to that. So thank you again for all that you do. And, you know, Steve and I, on behalf of Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley, really appreciate the partnership and all that you're doing for the community.
Likewise, you guys fill a very important role, and we really appreciate it.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Lance. Great talking as always.